What are the best examples for all corporate greed? Worked at Enron as first job out of college. In 2000 we were all called to a meeting and were strongly advised to take our end of year bonuses in Enron stock, knowing that a splurge of buys would drive up the price. Key executives had standing sell orders in place that triggered on a certain price. The take the stock instead of the bonus event triggered the higher price and the executives got to liquidate their soon to be worthless stock. To top it, they raided our 401k and left us all devastated. The real genius at Enron was Lupai. Lupai fricked a stripper and came clean to his wife. At the divorce, the judge ordered him to liquidate his stock to satisfy his financial obligations and the settlement. So he cashed out $250 million months before everything fell apart and didn't have to face insider trading charges because the judge made him do it. I worked for WorldCom when the walls came down and the whole scandal happened with Bernie Ebbers. Not 10 minutes after that scandal happened, the VP of sales flew out to my office and straight out asked me which of my large customers they could get away with overbilling. I told him I'd have to think about it, but my customers were typically structured in a way that they would notice if their bills had any variance to them. This was not true. I had a dozen customers who were excellent candidates for overbilling, but I wasn't about to wreck my reputation in the industry for these greedy bastards. A couple of months later, 3 of my customers called me complaining that their bills were wrong. It was blatant too. They had a huge dollar line item added to their bill with no description. All 3 of them were cool about it because they knew I would fix it, and I did. I looked into some of my other large customers and they were overbilled too, but they hadn't noticed it. I had those fixed too. Comcast trying to charge me 14 months in a year. Every 5 months or so Comcast will push my billing date ahead by about 2 or 3 weeks, expecting me to pay it earlier or cutting off my services for delinquent payment. UK Home Secretary Theresa May is busy trying to force police forces into privatising core functions, like control rooms, custody detention facilities, by reducing funding. Her husband is a major shareholder in G4S, so she stands to gain massively if G4S wins lucrative police contracts. Somehow this isn't a conflict of interest and she is allowed to get away with it. I do feel like we in Britain are currently too focused on Jeremy Corbyn and the EU referendum to pay attention to just how evil Theresa May is. David Cameron is an amazing politician, purely because his cabinet are so much more evil than him, and he looks almost good by comparison. Impeding the progress of the internet in the US solely to improve their bottom line. Looking at you, Comcast. Just about everything Comcast does, they charge more and give less. The customer service gets worse, less channels, capped internet. The service just keeps degraded, but the costs keep increasing. My company went public a few years back. CEO announces that there will be no raises that year to ensure a good report for our investors. However, there will be bonuses. Hey, alright, cool. If you don't understand why this is shady, it's because execs mostly only get paid in bonuses and stock. So he and his pals all cleaned up, made a few mil, got a few $100,000 stock options. Sure, we as regular employees also got a handful of shares, 50, and an okay bonus. Think 5% of salary. However, we as regular employees rely more on raises to keep our future net worth going, as that small bonus is a drop in the bucket compared to what they got long term. And, friends, this is how every public company is run. Welcome to the fun. FIFA taking all of the revenue from the World Cups and calling itself a non-profit. The GM ignition scandal. They knew beforehand the risk of people dying and concluded that number of people dead was worth the money saved. Your life is a cell in a spreadsheet. The company I work for almost always has layoffs and a record profit announcements around the same time. I worked in expenses for a big wholesale company in 08, right as everything went to heck. On the day that they announced 500 redundancies in my workplace alone, we were instructed to pay an invoice for the limo which took the CEO to the airport for his company-paid golfing trip to Spain with the sales team. My boss was facing a £3,000 bill to renew a safety license for our in-house cafeteria. He decided to close it instead, immediately firing the 2 kitchen staff and 50 other staff, losing all meal options. A week or 2 later, He then blows £30k on a marketing campaign he was repeatedly told would fail and we wouldn't recoup a single penny of the money spent. It was a total waste of time. He thought it was worth trying anyway. Totally doesn't mind wasting money away and can afford to, but won't spend a penny on staff if he doesn't have to. Can't quite figure it out. Sounds like the owner of a fast food company I worked for. He never fixed or replaced broken things, paid as low wages as humanly possible and cut hours left and right. Yet he couldn't figure out why almost all his workers were criminals and pillheads or why he was losing money because of quality issues. My wife's Hyundai has a remote start function, but you can't just use a key fob to use it. You have to pay them an annual subscription for BlueLink and use their smartphone app to start the car. Also, it's not included in the base rate for BlueLink but rather in the upgraded package. It's several $100s per year. Everything Nestle has done to Central and South America, and Africa, and Asia. There are a lot of infuriating examples in this thread, but I'd argue the worst cases are those which are harder to see. Many products are designed specifically to be more expensive to repair and easier to break simply to force a customer to buy a new one sooner than they might have needed to. The amount of waste, both environmentally and economically from this type of practice, taken in aggregate, is staggering. In practice, even though the GDP might be higher, it does not help the economy because the money does not go as far on inferior products. The amount of resources wasted, the pollution created, and the labor misallocated are all costs we pay, and all for a worse economy. But it will continue to happen so long as it is in each company's best interest to hide the true cost per use from consumers to artificially inflate the number of units they sell, even as companies spend more than they need to because they need to buy goods from other companies doing the same underhanded trick. The monetization of the 9/11 terror attacks is pretty freaking bad. Literally any business that could started selling BS in memory of the fallen. Just really tacky BS too. Commemorative coins with pop-up towers, collectible plates, crappy movies, t-shirts, bumper stickers, freaking everything. And there was almost no time in between from when the towers fell to when they started peddling their crap. In my eyes, the whole data cap thing is just ripping off customers. This was a big problem for me until I moved from a city where I had Comcast to one where I have municipal fiber. I was nearly tripling the cap during the 3-month trial period and had to majorly cut back before they started enforcing overage fees. Now I'm paying the exact same price per month with 33x the speed. Some banks increase their bounced check fees by clearing the biggest check through an account first so that many smaller checks will then bounce. If they get $25 per bounced check and there are 10 other checks, they can then charge $250 instead of just $25 for the one big check. Sleazy. Stores like Walmart limiting most of their workers to 30 hours per week so that they don't have to provide benefits to them. This is actually quite common for jobs that are considered part-time positions, not just at Walmart. Video game companies selling more than one season pass for a game. That freaking bullcrap. I think the concept of a season passes and pre-ordering is bullcrap. The problem is that it's easy to promise a product, it's hard to deliver, and there's not recourse if they don't deliver. All Canadian cell phone plans. The Ford Pinto case. Pinto was a compact car launched in 70s. Ford was under pressure to launch it as soon as possible to compete with imported cars. Security checks revealed that the cars had a major design flaw that made it vulnerable to catching on fire. Knowing this, they still went with production because a few buttholes did a cost-benefit analysis that stated that the expected cost of lawsuits, calculated by approximating the number of such incidences multiplied by 200k, the value of a human life, was less than the cost of repair on all items, $11 per car. If that isn't ashlery of the highest degree, I don't know what is. This is actually not far from what we do in our daily lives. We could buy a new car every 3 years, replace our tires every month, etc. to ensure nothing breaks down, but our cost benefit says it's not worth it. There's a study out there that showed we calculate our lives to be worth fairly little. Well, a few I would like to mention are Nestle, profits, babies, Ford, the Pinto analysis, General Motors, destruction of the public transport system, read about the GM conspiracy, VW, emission scandal, DuPont, Teflon manufacturing environment damage scandal. 2008 the financial crises. 1970 to 2015, the murder of wages. Ford also had that issue with the late 90s explorers blowing tires and killing people. They ran a lower air pressure to make the vehicle sit lower to prevent rollover. The lower air pressure caused the sidewall of the tire to give out at highway speed, causing a crash and in some cases death. Ford blamed Firestone for the issue. The CEO of Firestone resigned for Ford's mistake. In the early 2000s, rating agencies like Moody's and S&P were basically rubber stamping any subprime mortgage bond as AAA. That is, the safest investment you could make, because they were paid by the transaction and felt that if they didn't give AAA ratings, the banks would just have the other agency rated instead, and they didn't actually understand what they were rating. So mortgage originators started making worse and worse loans, knowing they would be rated as AAA, and banks not only offloaded them to suckers but drank their own Kool-Aid and invested heavily in the subprime market until the global economy collapsed and everyone on Wall Street got a 6-7 figure severance package. The fact that my brand new HP printer didn't come with a freaking cord to connect IT to my laptop. What the frick? IT's essential to the use of the thing. Smaller scale, but I worked for the restaurant group as a waiter. It started off great actually. Then they started making changes. Dropped our hours, despite contracts saying 30 PW. Added potential shifts where you'd wait to hear on the day if you were needed. If you didn't show, you got a telling off. Then what they did for their customers, they had decent food for a year and a half. Then they decided to cut the sizes of the meals down and raise the prices. So as a thank you to customers, they essentially charged more for less. The food was worse too. That's so scummy to me and shows a real disrespect to your employees and customers. If you're helping neither of them, what really are you doing? Abuse of the H-1B visa. Iran voted to nationalize its oil industry and kick British Petroleum out of the country. BP then went to the US and UK governments for help. The CIA and British CIS backed a coup that overthrew the democratically elected prime minister and gave more power to the monarch. Iran's hatred towards the West stems directly from this event. The US and UK helped destroy one of the most progressive and secular governments in the Middle East at the time, all in the name of corporate profit. On disk DLC. Non-cosmetic day 1 DLC. I say this because if other departments in the dev process are done before release, art department, they can just flick around and make little hats for the messengers in Bloodborne. That's cool, but gating off completed content for more money isn't. Valve releases free map pack for Left 4 Dead 2 on PC. Microsoft didn't want free DLC to be a thing and added like a $20 price tag to that same DLC for the Xbox. Planned obsolescence. You have been visited by the hamster of joy. Comment I like chicken to live a happy and full of joy like the joy hamster life. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.